same yarn. Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Welcome to episode 166 of the Love in Stitches podcast. Today is Tuesday, January 27th. I know that today, I checked the date before. We're at the end of January, and for me, it feels like I'm finally getting back into my routine after basically Thanksgiving. So if you're feeling that way too, know that it's okay. And yeah, we're getting back into it together. This week I've gotten back into like my cleaning routines. I actually made the bed today, which I know doesn't probably look any different here on the podcast, but I folded up the blanket that I use to sleep with down here, and it just feels really, really good. We also have a lot of light coming in. I think that because I'm recording the podcast in the morning, as I typically used to do and haven't done yet this year, things feel right on track, but the sun is reflecting off the building next door, so I may have to adjust as we go. I am wearing my old boxy today. I'm calling this my old boxy because, as I will show later on, I am working on a new boxy. It's a different one, but I am wearing it because, I don't know, I just wanted to, and I was wearing it this weekend and thought it would be fun to kind of show you what a boxy should look like. So this is the original fingering weight boxy by Joji Locatelli. It's super duper oversized, just like it's supposed to be. So you can see that the arm basically starts right above the elbow. It's really, really oversized. Mine's a tad bit, I think, too oversized for my style now, but I still like this boxy. I still really like the color and everything, and I will probably hang on to it for a bit longer. Oh, maybe one day it will be let go of my clothing, but that's for a later time. I just realized that I keep saying section instead of segment, which is what I mean to say when I talk about each of the podcasts. I guess section is still an appropriate word for that, but this is the podcast. No, I still can't get it right. This is the project segment of the podcast, and I have 3 projects to show you today. I am not going to start out with my boxy. I'm going to save it for last because I have a lot to talk about with that one. If you were here last week, you saw me try it on for the first time in front of the camera, and it did not go so well. So I will share with you those things and save it for last. So first, let's talk about some socks. Oh, I'm just remembering I didn't grab labels today, but I think that's okay. So these are my Advent socks. This yarn is Mint Rain hand-dyed yarn. To my knowledge, I don't think you can get it anymore. It was for December 2022, and it's a 24 skein stripe. So I finished one sock last week and started the second sock, and I have made a ton of progress. So I was right up here. Why do these always want to flip to not the side that you want to see? I must be clipping it on here the wrong way or something. But my cute little peppermint toad candy, I have worked the whole leg, which is, I feel like, a big accomplishment because these are really, really long. And I am just, I think, halfway through the foot. I need to do about 60 rows for my size 8 foot, and then the toe, and then these will be done. I was kind of hoping to finish them before the podcast because I am going to show you 3 projects that are almost done. So I'm hoping that means that next week I'll get to show you 3 finished things and we can move on to some more exciting projects. But that's just the way it goes, I think. Especially for me, I always find that I'm finishing a lot of things in the same week, which means I'm starting a lot of new things in the same week, which means the cycle never ends. Things are not staggered for some reason. Maybe I can try to be more intentional about that in the future, but I don't know. It feels kind of good to complete things towards the end of a month and then start fresh new ones anyway. So I'm not going to stress about it too much, but I'm loving this yarn. I am working on this pattern. It is a really simple, easy slip stitch pattern, but I am adding some things to this to help make it fit because it is a rather tight, you can see there's not a lot of give. So there's different things that I'm putting into this to make it possible to be a nice tall sock while still having room in the heel and all of that. So one day I hope to turn this into a pattern. I have a decent amount of yarn left. I still haven't weighed it. I need to weigh it, but it's very possible that if I have enough yarn for another pair of socks, I will be sending this off to somebody in probably my membership, because we have a D-stash channel, and seeing if they want to make maybe shorties or something like that. They could grab that. It would also make a good like little mini yarn cozy, which could be really fun, but I have a bunch of those. Actually, what could be fun, I just thought about this, I really want to make myself, I mean, I really don't need another set because I'm rarely working on more than one pair of socks at once, but it would be kind of nice. Is this the same yarn? I think this is the same yarn. I promise you, I'm not faking this. I didn't realize. I am almost certain that this is my boxy yarn. It has the same feel to it. It has the same like striations. That is just kismet, isn't it? Okay. What I was trying to say is I would like to make myself another set of 50-gram mini yarn cozies so that when I am splitting a 100-gram skein in half for socks, I like to do that sometimes so I can work on both socks like sort of in tandem, or at least start the first sock without having to finish up the first one because it's attached to the same ball of yarn. But it'd be nice to have another set, and I'm also thinking that I need them to be a slightly taller, so I might be like modifying the pattern a little bit, because I think there needs to be maybe another ½ inch or so for this to really cover things. But I mean, they hold on to the cake of yarn really well as is. So that could be a fun project to like use part of this up, is to make myself some more cozy. So maybe I will be doing that instead. That was like a very nice discovery, very interesting. I don't think I'm gonna have any of this gray left. It is almost gone. So I still need to use that for the toe of the second sock, but these are going great. So I did work on these mostly over the weekend. I took them out on Saturday to knit group. We had a knit group that we met up around Grand Central Station. And then I also took them on the train on Sunday when we went to visit a friend in Queens. And I have been practicing my knitting while standing on the subway. So these were great for that. I was on the heel, which wasn't like the perfect time, but I was able to kind of move past it. And I also worked on these a lot this past week while knitting and reading in the morning, because I didn't have another simple project to work on. But now that my boxy is back into a non-lace section, I've moved over to that again, because I really want to get that finished. So that's it for these socks. I don't think there's much else to say. Liking them, loving them, and can't wait to wear them. I'm wearing right now, hold on, they're kind of like folded over funny. I'm wearing right now the first version of these that I did many, many years ago. This is, Mustache Yarns Kama Sutra. And you can see I have not the like most perfect fit on these, but I did make them many years ago and I love them. I love the height, so I'm kind of mimicking these socks to make those. And then I think I need one more time to tweak it before I can write up the pattern. Okay, moving on to the next project. This is my scrappy granny stripe, and I really made sure to fold it all nice today so I can show you where I am at. So, oh, you know what? Hold on. I need to grab one more thing. All right. So this week I have been adding in yarns from my swap that I did. It's so loud. From this swap that I did in the Love and Stitches membership a couple of years ago. I think it was the end of 2021, so like basically a year ago. And I have put in this cute little donut marker to show where I was last podcast, and I have added in these 7 colors here. I really love the last one that I just did. It is so, so fun. I think it was called like 5th grade Trapper Keeper or something like that. But I have not been hanging on to the tags of these yarns because I have no idea how old they are, and I'm probably not going to be going to my blanket to like pick out yarns in the future. So they've just been, I've been using them to share on Instagram, and then they just go in the trash after that. But I have really enjoyed being able to see the names and the colors that my partner so lovingly put together. I have only 3 balls left, which is just wild. There's only 3 of these left. However, I have 6 stripes remaining in, I just thought I heard my phone buzzing. I have 6 stripes remaining in my blanket to give me a total length of 80 inches. So my aim is for this to be a 60-inch by 80-inch blanket. It's already 60 inches wide, and that is approximately the width of a queen size mattress. So just the top of it, not things going over the side. But I actually tested that out today, and I laid the blanket over my mattress to just see, like, okay, I've done the math and everything on is like how many stripes and rows and everything that I need to get it long enough, but am I actually there? And so I laid it out over the bed and got to see how it looked all together and took some photos, and I am almost there. I probably don't even need to do 6 more stripes to reach the top of the mattress, but I'm going to, because that was my plan all along, and that will give me like a teensy like inches extra of length and everything. So this project is really coming to an end, which is very sad for me in some ways, because this project has provided me a lot of comfort over the years. I started it in January of 2018. So this is a 5-year-old project, but my most recent memories with it are, of course, adding in my Advent this holiday season. So, oops, I got it upside down. So my Fangirl Fibers Advent, let's see if I can still find it, is right here, this pink, all the way up to this gold, where I've placed, you can barely see it, but I've placed a light bulb stitch marker. That light bulb stitch marker is in there so that I know how many stripes I have left to do. When I did the math, when I was finished with this Advent calendar, I knew that I needed to do 26 stripes. So right now I've got 20 from that marker, which means I have 6 more to go. So yeah, I've done a lot. Like, that's a few feet, isn't it? It won't even fit in the camera frame since December 1st. And so that feels really, really good. And if this is not proof that like chugging along on something, doing a little bit each day really gets you somewhere, then I don't know what is. Because basically the entire year up until December, I was like telling myself I was gonna work on this project every Sunday, and then totally not. So really just taking a couple months to like focus on it and do it daily has been great. And I haven't even had to totally ignore my other projects. It does take at least an hour every day for me to do the stripe, which is a significant portion of my time that I have to knit and crochet, but it's been okay. And I'm gonna be sad when it's over, I really am. So as far as the other yarns that I'm planning to use in here, I guess I'm still holding out a bit of hope that I will finish my boxy and have some yarn left over for that, which is the project we're going to talk about next year. I do have a decent amount of yarn left, but you'll soon find out what I still have to knit on it. So there's a chance that that will be added into there. That would be really, really nice. I don't know exactly like what kind of color I want to end on, because the blanket starts out pretty dark, and I'm not aiming to like completely balance it. I think that's part of what makes it fun, is it's so different. But I would like to like not end on a white, for example. Like I wouldn't want to end on this color that's really, really light. So these will probably be my next 3. And then what I've done is in here, which used to house a ton of my scraps, I went through all of my scrappy yarns that were 15 grams or more, and I pulled out a few that just really caught my eye and I really liked. And that's what I'm going to use to do those last 3 rows. I have way more than 3, so I can choose at that time, but they're basically all pinks. Pinks and just fun and bright colors. Some are lighter and more neutral here. So I don't know what I'm going to use. I mean, there's a really fun sparkly one here that I'm pretty sure is Suburban Stitcher birthday yarn, which I have good memories of using this yarn. So I have good memories with everything, but like it stands out to me. This one is really bright and fun. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I really like that. This one I think might be Stranded Dye Works Pinata. No, Bang Bang by Suburban Stitcher. I don't know. So those are in there, but I basically just took some time instead of having like 60 choices from scraps. I laid everything out on the bed and pulled out just the ones that I thought would be, you know, my favorites for the end of the blanket. So, oh my gosh, I will be choosing and picking that. Probably like actually being selective instead of random on those last few bits, just again, because I want it to kind of end in a way that isn't just totally random and everything. Now, as far as what I'm doing with the yarns that I'm using, like when I do a stripe with these, there is about 9 to 10 grams left, and I have them in this pouch. I actually need to transfer them over. I like to keep my hook in this pouch along with the blanket, because if I don't, I lose the hook. It like falls on the floor, falls on the couch, gets tangled up in the blanket. So every time I stop, I put it back in here. Very helpful. Kind of not the most convenient because it's in a bag, but honestly, much easier than trying to find the hook. So when I'm done, I have been keeping this bag that's labeled small scraps, and I know what this means to me. It's any scrap that is 10 grams or less. Currently, I don't have a project ongoing that uses scraps like this. Actually, this granny stripe blanket is really the last thing that truly uses scraps and not a mini skein like advent calendar. So I have been I need to do that now actually. Let's do it together, shall we? Whenever I'm finished up, you can see like that was the last stripe. I'm just dropping it into here, and this, oh my gosh, I had a lot. That's like the whole last week. Putting my hook back in here so I don't forget. I have a viewer that we have been talking since like late last year. Hang on. And they are going to take these scraps from me. So I just said, give me until the end of the month, because I'm gonna have more as I finish up all of these things. And so I've just been adding to this Ziploc bag. This has been really great for me because I'm not questioning like, what do I do when I'm done? Like, now I need to use this yarn. I'm like, no, this yarn has a purpose. It gets sorted into the bag of small scraps, which is less than 10 grams, and it is going to somebody else who will use it for, I think, a blanket that they are working on. So that feels really, really nice. So yeah, next week should be a finished blanket. And well, here's the thing. I talked last week about washing the blanket, and I thought that I wouldn't have to wash it for a while. Wool is amazing, right? It really doesn't hold on to odors. You just don't have to wash it as often as you do other fibers. Like when I wear wool socks, I will wear them for a week, usually like with another pair in between so that they can kind of air out, but they don't get smelly or stinky or anything like that unless you really wear them for a long time. So I thought the blanket will be fine for a while. Eventually I'm gonna wash it, but I won't need to yet. I had the blanket laying out on the couch, and our dear little toaster, who's not in the room today, I guess he wanted to hang out on the couch with Kent, he drank a bunch of water and then went on the couch and threw up all the water next to the blanket, but then it got on the blanket. Luckily, it got on the end that I was not currently working on, so like this end, and I was able to find it pretty quickly, like kind of wipe it off. I mean, it wasn't anything solid. Sorry, this is gross, but if you have pets or kids, it's par for the course. And then I sprayed it with a gentle cleaner that I use, but it's still like, to me, I think there's a little bit of a smell and it's just kind of ick. So I think what's gonna happen, at least my plan now, is when I'm totally done, I'm gonna go ahead and wash it. I'm a little bit scared, but I'm gonna wash it as gentle as possible in my machine. I'm gonna dry it as gentle as possible in my machine, which may be a combination of drying and then air drying. It needs to be pretty dry when I take it out to air dry it, because I just don't have a space to actually let it like lay and hang out that wouldn't like mess up the blanket. And any yarns that are like 100% wool or anything like that, will probably felt. I don't know if there's any in here. I think these are mostly all superwash blends that have nylon in them, so they should be okay, but I am not 100% certain. And so anything that doesn't work out will like full or felt, and I should be able to cut that out. So let's just say, for example, I know this is very risky, but like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna have to wash the blanket, and hand washing this blanket, something this size, and letting it dry is just not really gonna be a possibility. It needs to be able to be washed. So let's just say like this one is definitely a sock yarn, so it's not going to. But let's just say this got felted. I could cut it out. Crochet has finished edges, right? Actually, you know what? I don't know exactly what's gonna happen, because I guess these on the bottom will be loose. I may need to rethink that. I don't actually know what to do. I feel like there is a way for me to rejoin these together. I just don't know exactly what that would look like yet. And bottom line is it has to be washed at some point. So I gotta figure it out. So I think I'm gonna do that right away when it's done, and just then I'll have a plan for it. And of course, I'll take you along on that journey too. It's finally time to talk about my boxy. And this project has been on a hiatus for a little bit. So 2 Sundays ago, I got to a point where I thought I was done with the body. I'd already knit the sleeves, and I decided to do a like pre-finished, pre-bind off block and try it on for length and see if the length was where I wanted it to be. What ended up happening is on Tuesday, last week's podcast, when I filmed it, I tried on the boxy for the first time in front of the camera and found out more than I anticipated. I found out more about the length, which is what I wanted to know, but I also found out that my sleeves and basically the whole thing was just really not fitting like I had planned because of something that I did. So in between the last podcast and then today, I basically took about 4 or 5 days just not even looking at the boxy. I was thinking about it. I was looking through people's replies and comments on the last podcast, which thank you, by the way, for everyone who gave input. The overall consensus was that the sleeves have got to go and either be just taken off completely or re-knit. I'll talk about all of that. And then I also got some, I filmed some videos and shared them on Instagram. Sorry, I'm slipping away. And received a lot of helpful feedback there. So I just really appreciate you. And I'm gonna let you know what I've learned, and I'm also gonna use this boxy as an example, and I have a photo to share as well with like this comparison between the 2 boxies. All right, so let's just show the project first, might as well. So this is the Lace and Fade boxy by Hoagie Locatelli. There are many iterations of the boxy. I'm wearing one of the originals, the fingering weight one. There's definitely like a worsted or maybe a DK weight one. There's a V-neck one. There's maybe even a sport weight one. There's all sorts. So if you like this fit, boxy is the way to go. It is a relatively easy pattern. I would say, I would have said before this one that it's really easy to fit because it's so oversized, but I have learned something since then. So, okay, let's just talk about my yarn. So both of these yarns are the Little Wolf Knits. This one is Too Good to Eat, and this one is Apple Cider, and it's her Surrey base. And both of these are from the Donut collection. So after I mourned this sweater and finally picked myself back up to work on it, I ripped out the sleeves. Both were complete. I mean, they're small, but still. I ripped out both sleeves, which wasn't so bad. I had to untuck my ends, so now I got some short little ends here, but that's all right. And then I decided to put a pause on the sleeves, and I actually picked up the body, which was on try-it-on tubing, and I decided to make the body longer. So I think the length was okay in the last podcast. A lot of people said they really liked the length, but after wearing this one and just thinking about my general preferences for fit, I realized I would probably like it more with a little more length. I just don't really wear that high-waisted of pants because they're uncomfortable to me. And so I figured I should probably make a sweater that I can wear with the jeans that I like to wear. Like, duh, but that's okay. So I ended up picking this back up. I was right here after the stockinette where my little cake is, and I decided to do one more section of lace, and then for the last part, I'm gonna do half a section of stockinette, and then the other half, so it'll basically be the same length here, but the other half will be the bottom ribbing. So we'll see how that comes out. I'm still in my head going, it's very possible that I will need to then take some length off and not actually love that length. But I want to see it like finished and bound off first and like actually try it on with jeans and then with sleeves and everything. So this is just a risk that I am taking in order to get a good fit. But I think it will work out. So I've moved through the lace. I did that on, let's see, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then I've moved on to the stockinette section, which I don't have many more rows to go until I can start the ribbing and then bind off. And that will be really, really great. And that will bring us back to the sleeves. So I did keep the yarn. You can see it's all curly Q. I kept the yarn from the sleeves in case I do need it, but I'm hoping that I can actually use this yarn instead. It's just nice to use fresh yarn, so we'll see. After I bind off the body, I will be back for the sleeves. Okay, so let's talk about it. So I did something different on this boxy. Instead of picking the size that the designer told me to make, I decided to make one size smaller. I have good reasons. Let me explain. This boxy, I should have looked up, let me see if I can pull up real quick the size of this one. It's a really oversized sweater, and it's supposed to be, but I think this one is a little too big for my preferences now. So it looks like the size that I made on this one is a 32-34. I made this sweater in 2016, so that's 7 years ago. So I think that this pattern had different sizes. I think it was like a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and I'm making the first size, the 1. So I really don't know what bust measurement that is for off the top of my head. Sorry, I probably should have had that. So my original plan was to make, okay, hold on. My bust measurement told me to make the size 2, but because I didn't want as much ease, so I wanted the sweater to not be this big. I mean, this is a lot of ease, right? So how much bigger it is compared to my body. Since I wanted less, I figured I could just go down in the body size, and then I would make up for it in the sleeves by knitting a size 2 in the sleeves, which is exactly what I did. So a couple of people have said to me, like, you know, you need to look at the sleeve schematics. I did. I totally did. But this is one thing that I didn't account for. When I changed the body size, not only did I change the actual fit of the body, I changed where the sleeves were going to start on my arm. So let me explain. Actually, this is the perfect place to put in this picture. So look at this picture. And you can see the boxy I'm currently knitting on top of the one that I am wearing. You can see how much smaller the body is. But then if you look up at the sleeves, you can see that the sleeves start about maybe 3 inches sooner on both sides. So on this sweater, it's fitting me like it's supposed to. If you look at the picture of Ho-He in this boxy, in the Lace and Fade boxy, this seam right here where you start the sleeve is right above the elbow. Like right here, kind of almost in the crease, a little bit above that, okay? And that's where it's supposed to be. The current one that I'm knitting, the sleeve starts like about here. Right, yeah, that's about right. Right here. So like right in the bicep, which is a much larger part of the arm. And it also just makes the sleeve, when you knit it to the pattern length, look funny. Like this is exactly, when I tried it on last week, like this is exactly what it was looking like. Maybe it was like right here. But it, like, look how cute this looks. Let me back up. So cute. Awkward, right? Okay, so That was a mistake on my part. I am fully to blame for this. I should have followed the instructions, but I'm gonna defend myself here and say that I really do like the actual body circumference of this boxy. And I actually like the neck. Like this neck is way too big. Like I have to keep, you saw me keep pulling it up because this neckline is like a boat neckline and I don't like that. So this one, as far as the neckline goes, as far as the body fit, A+, exactly what I was hoping for. But the sleeves, not going so great. So not only were they definitely too tight, I think they're too tight, one, because I think my gauge is a little smaller. I should check that. But also because it was starting on a different part of my arm. So of course it wasn't fitting totally right. So yeah, I think I can fix that. But my second thought was, if I knit, so if I have a sleeve starting higher up, and I then knit the sleeve a little longer to reach where it's supposed to in the pattern, how is that going to look? Is it going to look funny? And the answer is, I don't know yet. I don't know yet until I try. So my current plan is to finish the body. Several people suggested not having sleeves at all, so just leaving it like this and making it a summery top. But I don't think that's gonna work for me. I just don't think I'm gonna like how that looks. But because it doesn't take any more effort to try that after I finish binding off the body, I will try it on, I will take a look in the mirror, maybe take a photo and see what I think. I don't think I'm gonna like that, so I'm already planning to reknit the sleeves. I don't know if I'm gonna go up a needle size, but I am definitely going to pick up more stitches than before. My armhole was really tight. Like this one is not tight. Like there's even stretch in it. This one here is looking pretty small. I don't know if I just didn't give it enough or if just the fact that this is a Surrey alpaca, it's kind of a tighter thing, but I think I can definitely get more stretch out of it with more stitches without it looking totally wild. So I think I will be okay here. That's another thing, is when I actually put this on without any sleeves on it, it will kind of tell me if it's fitting okay or not. I mean, I guess I can just, like, that's fine. It's totally fine. This is like the worst way to try on a sweater. I mean, there's not a ton of ease. I mean, you can see this is obviously not very accurate, but you can see that this comes up pretty high. So yeah, I'll have to kind of play with it, but definitely I'm gonna need more stitches. I just don't want to pick up too many where it kind of like bows out and looks goofy. Really like this color. And then as far as the length of the sleeve, I don't think I'm gonna like it if it's just coming like right to the elbow. That honestly kind of bothers me. Like it feels like something's in my way. So I'd rather it either go past the elbow like this one does. I've also thought about doing long sleeves. Maybe. I think it might be cute. I don't know if it like fits the vibe or if I want to keep it like a tight sleeve or just keep it like no decreases, or I'm definitely going to work to the elbow with no decreases, okay? No decreases until the elbow so I can make sure I'm getting a good fit, but it should be very easy to try on because I'm going to have the body finished. Then I'll just be able to throw the sleeves on. I'll keep the sleeves on magic loop. We should be golden. So that's what's going on with my boxy. It has been a roller coaster for certain. So to sum up, I added another section of lace to my boxy instead of just extending the stockinette for length, because I think that's going to look a whole lot better. I've ripped my sleeves and I'm going to be reknitting them, picking up more stitches. I'm not even going to look at the pattern. I'm just going to pick up as many stitches as look right for this armhole that I have created and go from there. So if you want to stay up to date, like day by day, make sure you're following my Instagram, and hopefully I will have at least one sleeve, if not a finished sweater, to show you on here next week. When I went out to grab my extra battery, I was able to convince somebody to come and join us for the remainder of the podcast. He's chilly because his blanket is currently in the wash. I need to put it in the dryer after this, but it's too loud to do any washing and drying while recording the podcast. The joys of a small apartment. So let's start in with some questions. So if you have a question for me, maybe something that came up during this podcast or something you've just always been wanting to ask, maybe you asked it in a previous podcast, but because I can only get to so many questions, I haven't answered it yet. Make sure to leave a comment down below, but at the front of it, put #question. That's what I look for when I'm going through to pick the questions for the week, and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. So we've got 5 questions for this week, and the first one comes from Lizzie. When doing helical knitting, do you find that the stitches you slip over end up loosening up when you slip them? I'm having this issue, and I'm not sure if I should snug them up or just keep going. #struggle bus. Okay, Lizzie, so definitely there needs to be some adjusting when you're doing helical knitting. And then for anyone who hasn't heard of this term before, helical knitting is a really awesome way to do 1-row stripes in knitting in the round. So you can do this in stockinette, you can do it in rib, you can do it in any stitch pattern that lines up vertically where the stitches don't change. So it gets messed up if you're increasing and decreasing and stuff like that. But where this is really helpful is if you have 2 colors that you want to alternate, or if you have a hand-dyed yarn and you're making like a sweater like this, for example, in the round, and you want those 2 skeins that you have to blend together. So when you slip those 3 stitches, you don't need to do anything with them on that row because you're going over to use the next yarn. This is where you need to make an adjustment. So I always snug up on that first stitch, but I think what you're noticing too, Lizzie, is that those other 2 stitches look a little bit loose too. So sometimes what I have to do is like tug up on that middle stitch. So there's 3 stitches that you've slipped on the previous row that you're about to pick up that yarn and start working with. So usually what I find is when I pull on that first one, it kind of snugs up the second one, and that works out seamlessly and beautifully. You really have to play with this because everyone's gauge is different. My gauge is pretty loose, so I don't have to like pull on it as much. But what you don't want to do is pull those stitches really, really tight, so then they're noticeably tighter, and then you have this like tight thing spiraling around. That would not be good either. So I would say tug up on the first stitch. If it pulls tight and the second one stays loose, you can kind of use your fingers to like let that like extra bits from the second stitch come over to the first one, and then you can like, that's the one you have control of, right? With your yarn, you can pull on that. So hopefully that helps, but I definitely have to do a little bit of adjusting just depending on how I slip the stitches in the previous row. I will make sure to link the helical tutorial that I have if this is a technique that you're interested in using. I'll have it down below and maybe up here somewhere. The next question is from Jane. I was just wondering why you decided to abandon your cozy memory blanket. I am also knitting this as well, and I have thought about doing the same thing. It just seems like it's taking so long to just make 1 square to add on. Okay, I still have my abandoned Cozy Memories blanket. So this is a Cozy Memory blanket, or it's a mitered square blanket. The pattern that I was using was the Coziest Memory by Kemper Ray, but there's lots of them out here, or out there. So I have done like a whole wide row across, and then I was starting to build the squares. You can see here's one that's like starting to come out. And I started this, I don't even know how many years ago. I think the same year I started my granny stripe blanket, so 5 years ago. And I was pretty into it at first. I was excited. I was like, oh, I wanted to make this for so long. I had been collecting tiny 2-gram scraps for years and years because the local yarn store that I used to work at, Bliss Yarns, they really jumped on it when like this first became popular, and they had a trunk that you could just come and like, let's say you had 10 little bundles of scraps, you could drop those in and like pick out 10 more so that we were just constantly rotating and trading scraps so that everyone could make a beautiful scrappy blanket. So I had actually been collecting without making for a really long time. So I felt really invested in it and I was excited. And I mean, look, I see some of the yarns that I totally remember like making socks out of. The self-striping ones come out really fun. But ultimately, I wasn't pulling this out to work on because it just wasn't enjoyable. And I'm not so certain I like love it. Actually, that's not true. I think they look really beautiful. It just wasn't a fun one for me. And it was going really, really slow. And I was finding that I wasn't having a good time. And I think when you're not having a good time with your knitting and crochet, it's definitely a sign that you need to stop and just either take a break, come back and look at it later, but don't feel guilty about it. So if you're not enjoying your cozy memory blanket, I would say take the pressure off for right now. Just try that. Just put it away. Don't even like take it. If it's on your Ravelry project page, hibernate it so it moves to the bottom. It's still there, it's still saved, but you don't have to look at it every time you go into Ravelry. I find that really helpful. And then if one day you're like, oh, you know what, I'd really like to work on that. Great. If in 6 months you haven't thought about it once, then maybe it's time to let it go. So I'm definitely letting mine go. I don't know what I'm gonna do like with this. Like I'm not gonna unravel it. I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna toss it because like what else can you do with this? I don't know if you can recycle this or do anything else with it. And I like to upcycle and I like to be conscious of things, but not to a fault. Like I'm not gonna use this just because I feel guilty about it. Like I don't feel guilty at all. But if there's something I can actually do with it, will y'all let me know? I'm not gonna like take it apart and make it into coasters, no. Nothing that requires more work for me. But yeah, if you do have any ideas for it, let me know. And Jane, you have permission to stop working on the cozy memory blanket. And for anyone who is working on these and does like it and wants to continue, I just saw that Kay, the crazy sock lady, has started, well, I think she started a while ago. She's working on her second one. She does them a little bit differently. I think she starts from the center and then like works her way out. So if you want motivation, follow her, the crazy sock lady, on Instagram and YouTube because she will probably finish hers and work on it for a long time to come. Question number 3 comes from Christine. How long do you think you will stay in New York City? If you were to move away, where might you go? Also, I finally switched over to Libby and really like it. Libby is a reading app. I haven't switched over to Libby yet, and I don't like it. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not, but there were a few people that said that they also prefer Overdrive, and now I feel vindicated. So one day I'll switch over to Libby when I have to. Okay, so our plans right now are not anywhere in a place where we can share them. What I can share with you is that our lease here in New York City ends on June 30th of this year, and that it's very unlikely that we will stay here in this apartment. We haven't even shared our plans with our family yet. So like I said, nowhere near a possibility for us to actually, or nowhere near a place where I feel like I can share on here yet, just because I want to, 1, know more solidly what we're going to be doing, and 2, have the chance to share that with family and everything first. I don't think any of them watched this, but if they did, they would be like, what? You're gonna move? Like they don't even know. So yeah, we're probably gonna move, but I will share with you much, much closer to that time. As always, we have exciting things to come, and I feel like really grateful that we are in a place where we can just say, no, we don't want to live there anymore. Let's move. Let's go somewhere else. So yeah, exciting plans in the works that are potentially going to be happening. But if we stayed in New York another year, I wouldn't be upset. I really do love living here, and this second year here, which we're coming up on April 1st, will be the end of our second year here, has felt more like home. And so it's been really incredible. And especially like in the last, I guess because last weekend I had a lot of friend things that I did. It feels like we're finally like building relationships here. And so that's really exciting too. So I'm sorry I can't answer it fully, but that's honestly where we're at right now. And when I say we, I mean myself and my husband, Kent, and Toaster. Question number 4 comes from Amelia. I think that says Amelia. My screenshot is a little bit blurry. Okay. Do you script any of your videos? You always sound so well-spoken and intentional with your words. Wow. Thank you so much, first of all, as I and what over your question. So I do script a lot of my videos, not word for word. I cannot memorize things. And it also doesn't sound, for me, it doesn't sound authentic to read something that's like just written out. But I do bullet point a lot of things. So it kind of works differently for different videos. For the podcast, I'll show you right now actually. I have this template that I use, and it's in a Google sheet so that I can just copy it over from one week to the next and just change the things that change. So it always has for me my sections, projects, questions, news and life, and it has for me, when I copy it over, I can see like what I said last week versus what I want to add on to this week so that I kind of make sure I'm not just like repeating all of the same things. So that's how I handle the podcast. It usually takes me anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to prepare for a podcast still, even though I'm on episode 166. So I do find that planning really helps me. And I think it's a combination of like doing the planning and really thinking about what I want to say, then it's just in my mind, and then also practice just being in front of the camera. So I might look down and say, okay, here's the things that I thought out with my notes, and then when I talk to the camera, those things are in the back of my mind, but I might find new things to talk about and things like that. For my other videos, I have definitely been spending a lot of time creating notes and things for them. So again, I don't write out everything I'm going to say word for word. That would take me so long, and it wouldn't be worth it because again, I can't memorize things. There are parts of those videos that I like to maybe say things in a certain way, especially the beginning. Like I kind of want to have like a catchy sentence to say so that if somebody new clicks on the video, they're interested in what might be coming up in the video and I'm very clear about what's coming. So that part might be a little more thought out, but then the rest of it will be like, okay, I want to talk about this, this, and this, and then here's like a few bullet points on each of those things. If I have to like research for my own videos, maybe when I did my year in review, I spent a lot of time researching and putting together notes and everything. So I definitely do spend a lot of time on that in the front end to make sure that I'm like hitting everything that I want to during the videos. So again, thank you so much for saying that. It makes me feel really, really good. And that was, oh, the 4th question. So we have one more. This question comes from Belly Bells Bounce. How can we make those center pull mini skein balls? Oh, I've got an answer for you. So the first is that I actually didn't make these. So I think you're talking about these, which are center pull balls. These are from a swap, so I did not do these. And until you asked that question, I didn't even know how. So they're really cute. They look like this. When I wind up mini skeins, I just wind them into an actual ball where the center is contained. So you have to unwind it from the outside. But the nice part about these is that you can pull from the center, and of course I already cleaned up the other thing, but basically they just flatten just like a cake and it works out really, really nicely. So I don't know how to do this, but I did look up a tutorial and I'm going to include it for you in the description box below. The tutorial is by, who is it by? I didn't write it down, but it was a good tutorial. It was a short tutorial. I think it was, hold on, who was it by? I remember picking this person. Maybe it was All About Ami. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with that. I think it was, but it'll be down below. It was a really quick tutorial, and you essentially start by winding around your fingers, or you can use a tool like they make tools, I think, for it, or you can just use like a toilet paper roll, but I feel like using your fingers, especially for a mini skein, is perfect. I think if you have a big skein, you're gonna need something else to help you out. But you kind of like wind in a diagonal and then you rotate, and you wind in a diagonal and rotate, and you just literally keep doing that. I will say a tip for you is to make sure that you leave the center like strand coming out of the ball. A lot of these have that, but I can kind of tell that this is definitely a skill. Like, oops, some of these, like this one probably looks like maybe one of the first ones that they did, but then look at this one. It's like so perfect. And I'm saying that with no background knowledge. This could be like 2 people working on these, but I definitely noticed that some were a little more round, whereas some were more like flat and cake-like. In the tutorial that I linked, they're like flat. I don't know how she does it. It's wild, but they're great, and they look like they're not as hard to make as I would have thought. So check out that tutorial down below. And if you have any questions for me that you want me to answer in the next podcast, just leave a comment with #question at the beginning. The sun is really coming in here. Let's see. That's better, right? I don't love it because I don't love like the shade, the like manila shade in the picture, but it was very, very bright and creating lots and lots of shadows. So news this week, pretty short and sweet. I have a new video. It is my Scrap Free 2023 part 2. So in the first video, I got all of my scrap yarn organized, all my mini skeins, all of that. And then in this past week's video, I took the time to think and mull over for a week and then create a project plan. So in that video, I walk you through the 5 projects that I'm planning to complete in the first month of the year. And I'll be sharing them here on the podcast too, but I won't share them until I start them. So since next week's podcast is going to be the 1st of February, the first podcast of February, I do plan on sharing like my whole plan for the month, as well as reviewing January's project plans and how things went. I think that will be a perfect like little add-on section for the first podcast of the month. So you will see a new scrappy project coming in soon if you don't enjoy my other videos and don't only come here for the podcast. They will be coming, the scrappy projects will be coming in here as well. The next part of the Scrap Free 2023 series, and I'm thinking the last one for now. I will probably have some updates throughout the first 6 months of the year, as well as one to kind of wrap things up at the end of the 6 months. Next week though, I'm going to be sharing 10 things that you can do with your scraps that aren't blankets. So this is going to include ways that you can like get rid of your scraps, donate your scraps, as well as projects that are small, that aren't blanket size, that you can use just a few scraps for, that may not even look super scrappy, as I know that's not everyone's taste. So look for that coming up next week. And then for our events, there is Vogue Knitting Live in New York City coming up really soon, February 9th through the 12th. I am going to be there for every single day. I'm taking classes. Is that true? I need to put the classes in my calendar, but I think I have classes every day. I'll be at the marketplace. I'm going to the cocktail hour. I'm going to Hadestown. I'm going to the dinner. So I hope to see you there. I did realize that I have plenty of stickers left over from Rhinebeck, so I'll bring the stickers. If you see me, come say hi. I think there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to be masked because it's an indoor event and a lot of people. And for COVID and just for like the respiratory stuff going around, I feel like that's going to be the best decision for me. So you may see me. I may be masked, but I still want to meet you. I'm wearing a mask so I can meet you and say hi, and we can take a picture, whatever you want to do. So don't hesitate to come up to me then. I haven't decided what I'm going to be wearing yet, but I feel like one of the days I'm definitely going to wear my seaside dress, the pink one that I wore to Rhinebeck. So hopefully, my boxy is supposed to be for Vogue Knitting Live. I should be able to finish it by then. So you'll see myself and my friend Amy wearing matching boxies. What else? I don't know what else to say about it, but I'm very excited for Vogue. I saw some of your tips for what to expect for my first Vogue Knitting Live in last week's podcast. So again, if you have any tips that you want to share with me, I would greatly appreciate it. had a really fun weekend. Very unusual for us to have this many different activities and groups that we hung out with and things to do. And it just made me feel really good and like feel like a normal person sometimes with like working from home and running a business and like Kent and I both being home all the time and then not being near family. I don't know. It just sometimes feels like we're kind of unusual, that we like don't do a lot. But so it felt so good to actually get out, and Kent and I did something on our own. We did something with friends. I did something with knitting friends. We got to go to a friend's house. It was just all really good, and it made me, as even an introverted person, feel re-energized. So that was really nice. So on Friday, Kent and I are trying to get out of the house on Friday afternoons. We are kind of using it as like a business/life meeting where we get out, we maybe get a coffee or a drink or something and talk about things coming up in the next week, you know, again, life, groceries, things like that, and then business things that need to be worked on because we are working on this together. Kent's role right now is the video editing and then some admin things, and it's been so helpful and allowed me to do so much more because we are working on it together. We went to a local coffee shop and got some lattes on Friday afternoon. They had Valentine's specials. So I got a raspberry latte, which was really good. It was raspberry flavored syrup, but it tasted awesome. Always with oat milk too. And Kent got something like some kind of mocha or something, and they had these funny names. It was really cute, and I love getting to go to local coffee shops. It's always good. And then, buzzing off of our coffee, we got invited to go to dinner with some friends. So we went to a pizza place down in Murray Hill, which is a neighborhood in Manhattan. Got pizza, and then went to Koreatown to a place called Grace Street Bakery. I've always wanted to go in there and eat inside. It's kind of like one of those places, it was huge inside, but there's a walk up off the street where you can order at the counter. And so that's the only, I think I've been maybe 2 or 3 times. That's the only way I've experienced it before, especially like the last time I went was last year, and I'm pretty sure they were limiting indoor dining still. And so my brother and I, it was when my brother was visiting. Oh my gosh, that was a really long time ago then. That was like 2 summers ago. So I don't know, maybe I haven't been there in a while, but we got, they call it snow. It's kind of like an iced, it's not an ice cream, but it's, I would say ice cream, but we got that and ate it outside. Anyway, this time we went inside and we got desserts, and it was so good. There was a burnt cheesecake, which is amazing. I know it sounds weird, but it's so good. And then I got a rose milk tea latte. No, it wasn't called a latte. A hot rose milk tea that was really good, and matcha beignets. I mean, there was just all kinds of stuff that was so good. So that was really fun. And on Saturday, I went out on my own for a bit. I met up with my friend Megan, and we got ramen together, and we knitted a little bit. Megan is a knitter. And then we went together to the New York City knit group that I'm in that meets once a month. And this time we met in an atrium. So it was like a big, it was a public space, which was really cool. In New York City, they have all these public spaces that a lot of times during the week, I think it's for business people to like get out of their office but still like eat lunch, and you know, it's cold during the winter, so like have space indoors to eat lunch and all of that. But during the weekend, it wasn't as crowded, and so we had a huge group of people there. It was incredible. I brought my socks to knit on, so I got a lot of sock knitting done. I met some new people, saw some people that I was familiar with already, and it was really fun, and it really filled me up so much to get out and do some knitting in public. So good. Before we went over there though, Megan and I got some coffee at a place that I really like and highly recommend if you're in Manhattan on the east side. It is called Remi, R-E-M-I, and it is a coffee/flower shop. I don't have pictures of that, but it's really beautiful inside. And I got a rose latte this time, so I did get a rose latte. And I don't know, I guess I'm really into food. So I'm just sharing all the food with you. But I got a rose latte, Megan got a lavender latte. They're really, really good. And we took those over to the knit group. And one other, I guess, mentionable thing is that while we were walking, we saw a huge cluster of pigeons on the street. Now, in my neighborhood where I live, you really don't see that because there's not a lot of open space, but we just happened to be walking by like a plaza and somebody had scattered something and there were pigeons everywhere. So it just felt very iconically New York. And you know, I feel like when you're in a good mood, seeing things like that makes you feel like a part of the moment. Whereas like on another day, I'd probably see pigeons and be like, oh, they're so annoying. But it was very quintessential. And on Sunday, we got to go to one of our friends, one of our good friends here in New York City invited us to their house, their parents' house in Queens, and his mom cooked for us for Lunar New Year. So we got to experience a lot of dishes that were new to us, that were very good. I know Kent was really excited because he loves eating all different kinds of food, but especially meat, different kinds of meat. Whereas I am a little bit more like, not as adventurous with meat, but I love trying different kinds of vegetables and flavors and all of that. So we were kind of the perfect combo because we tried everything between the two of us. And it was really lovely and very, very cool to learn about Lunar New Year from his family. So that was really, really great. And they have a huge, very fancy massage chair that Kent and I both tried out. I think it was 15-minute session. So I was in there for 15 minutes, Kent was in there for 15 minutes. And then before we left, after we ate, Kent got in the chair again for like 15 more minutes. And I have to say, it was very, very nice. I have been reading up a storm this year. I have started another new book, but first let me talk about the one that I finished. So last week I was reading Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson, and I have since finished that book. I can definitely recommend it. It was a very lighthearted book, not a lot of heavy. I've been reading some books that are heavy, especially the next one I'm going to talk about. Lighthearted content, a romance, but not like PG, very PG, which is like a kind of a thumbs down for me, to be perfectly honest. I thought maybe we would get a little bit of something, but I feel like that's perfect for a lot of people. You know your own taste. So if you like a love story that's not explicit in any way, this may be a great book for you. It was also really fun because it was a book about somebody who loves books, and it was just really cute. So easy read, fun. It was based in Nashville, so there's a little bit of that in there. Main character is a woman, young, I would say like mid-20s. I don't know if they ever told us exactly how old this person was, but great book, Meet Me in the Margins. Definitely enjoyed that one. Then I started reading Mad Honey, that I at first thought was just by Jodi Picoult, but Picoult? I don't know how to say her last name. She's a very famous author. I feel like I should know that. But it is actually co-written by Jennifer Finney Boyland. I believe I got that right. I tried to write that down. And this book, I'm pretty certain I got as a recommendation from Jen, who has the Downseller Studio podcast. Not directly from her, but I was listening to the podcast and she also talks about the books that she's reading and shared this one, I'm pretty sure, because when she shared it, I put it on hold at the library and I didn't get it for like a month. So that's why I can't say for certain if it came from her or not. So this book is definitely heavy. It's also a different writing style than I'm used to. I read a lot of young adult and romance, which is for the most part an easy read. And Mad Honey, I'm finding that I have to concentrate a lot. I don't have to concentrate as much anymore. And I feel like that this is true whenever you go from one genre to the next or one author to the next even. It takes a little while to get into that writing style and for it to become comfortable. So now that I'm maybe 30% into the book, it doesn't feel like quite as much effort. The other thing that makes it a little bit more effortful to read is that it is switching between two characters' perspectives and in time. So if that's not something that you're cool with, maybe don't. It's not a time, what is it called? They're not actually moving within time. It's just they're telling the story at different points in time. So there is heavy content in this book. I feel like this is not a spoiler, but maybe don't listen to this if you are planning to read the book. The heavy parts of this are that there is death right away and there is domestic violence. So I wouldn't recommend this book for anyone who has experienced these things maybe at all, or maybe in recent months, if you've experienced a death or something. It's just, oh, and suicide. There's a lot. It's a lot. It's heavy. But I will say that when I shared that I was reading this book on Instagram, so many people have said it's such a good book. There's mystery, we're trying to figure something out. I mean, there is just so much going on in it, and I'm definitely wrapped up in the story. I'm like eager to go to bed at night to read. I am somebody who often has a hard time with heavy topic books. When I read Verity, that was hard. It was a lot. But this book, I don't really feel the same way. I feel like, and this comes with my life experiences too, where I've been very fortunate enough to not experience a lot of these things, that I am finding it easy to like be like, this is a book. I'm enjoying it and I'm in it, but it's not like making it hard for me to sleep at night. So that's my review right now without telling you fully what the book is about. But I am definitely liking it and eager to keep reading. We have been watching, we've started some new things. We're still watching The Circle. I found out that it was season 5 and we're almost done. I can't believe it. And I can't wait to see what happens next because there's so much going on. But we also started watching Severance on Apple TV. Which is a serious show. And I don't know if I love it. It's kind of boring. There's a lot, again, it's like a show where it's like a lot that we don't know. And like, I feel like it's going to give you that feeling of like, oh, like when it all comes together, but it's kind of like dry. It's a lot. Then we also started watching The Last of Us on HBO Max, which is, I think, based on a video game. And only one episode was out when we started. There may be a second episode out by the time the podcast comes up. It was really good. So it's an end of days kind of thing, with some fantasy in it, a little, well, I don't know, there's zombies in it, ish. But it is really cool. And one of the coolest things about it that I don't know if it's going to carry throughout the rest of the season, because again, we only saw one episode, which was very long. I think it was over an hour. So just plan accordingly. But there was a point of view that is often like only seen in video games. I've actually never seen it in a movie. I'm sure that it is in a movie or show, but it's the point of view where you are the driver of the car and you can see the windshield and you can see the steering wheel. That is like only used in video games most of the time. And it was very interesting that part of it was filmed that way. That made me like nerd out a little bit because I thought that was really, really cool. So if you're looking for a show to get into that you can watch weekly, that's longer, that's intense, think like, what's it called? What's the zombie show called? Walking Dead. Like that level of like violence and like things that are going on, and it's a good show. So I would recommend it. The Last of Us, I believe it was on HBO Max, and definitely liked that. All right, let's get into my intentions. I'm gonna try to keep it as quick as I can, but I have so much to share this week. I did a ton of decluttering. So let me get a sip of water and I will do my best not to drag on. So I have 3 areas of goal setting for the month of January, and next week I will have new goals. So in February, I'm going to have new things that I'm working on, and you won't have to hear me talk about decluttering, which will be fine. I probably will still keep decluttering, just not in the same way. So I have a personal goal, a business goal, and a knitting crochet goal. My personal goal is to declutter 30 minutes 4 times a week. This past week, I again managed 3 out of 4 days. I'm still calling that a win. 3 is way more than 0, and I am so okay with that. On Tuesday, I decided to get into clothes, something that I had been avoiding. So I first started out with my t-shirt drawer. So here is the before of my t-shirt drawer. It's like t-shirts and pajamas and stuff like that. I had a lot of stuff that needed to come out that just didn't belong in there. I also got rid of quite a few t-shirts that I just wasn't wearing. I could tell because they were like way in the back, and I mean, I just know what I wear the same things like all the time. So I ended up getting it nice and cleaned up, and here is the after. That was really, really quick for me. It did not take a long time at all. Then and I put all of those clothes that I wasn't going to keep into a Target bag here. So here's the day one donation pile. Then on Wednesday, no, I didn't declutter on Wednesday. That was the day that I missed. Something happened, but I don't remember. Something kind of changed up my plans, which was fine. On Thursday, I decided to go into the closet. I have drawers and hanging clothes in the closet. So I first worked on my workout clothes. So here is my workout clothes before. Very messy. I didn't get rid of a lot, but I did need to take some things out, and I got rid of a few leggings that I just wasn't wearing anymore. And here is my workout clothes after. Definitely a lot more functional for me. And what I found with clothes is that it doesn't matter, like, if you have 100 of one item or like 10 of them, you're probably still wearing 10. Like, we wear so few of the clothes that we actually have, and for me, it's become very easy for me to identify like what I'm actually wearing and let go of the things that I'm not. And maybe they were something that I was wearing. Like the leggings that I got rid of, I wore them a ton when I first got them. This was a few years ago when leggings were like the daily wear, right? We didn't have joggers. We did have yoga pants, but we weren't wearing them again. You know, it's just things change and my style changes, and that's okay. I wasn't wearing those leggings anymore. They're perfectly good. So now I can take them and donate them, and hopefully somebody else can get some wear out of them. That didn't take very long. So I also did a second drawer, my sheets, and there was a bunch of sheets in there that we don't use anymore. So here's after of the sheets. Not a huge difference, but it definitely, because I took out two things that we weren't using, it gave me a lot more space. And I feel like white sheets are something that hopefully people can use or get at a donation store, even if they're going to use it for like covering furniture or like painting on top of, then that is great. And then also on that same day, again, things did not take me like as long as I thought. That's what's been really wild about this, is that even on the days, like I have 30 minutes, I usually don't use all of that 30 minutes. Usually it takes me 15 to 20 minutes to accomplish these tasks. It's really wild when you get into it. So same day I worked on my hanging clothes. So here's the closet before. Kent and I share this closet, and so I kind of outlined my clothes with the pink line. And then here's the after. I really didn't get rid of all that much. Basically, I had to take out all of the tank tops and stuff that were in there that I am not currently wearing and put them somewhere else in storage. And I got rid of a handful of things. So I really don't have a lot of clothes. I want to actually start replacing some things that I have been wearing with materials that are more long lasting and like a little bit better quality. So I'm really trying to look into wool t-shirts, because those are things that you can wear more than once without, again, I think I talked about this. Yeah, I think I talked about this earlier. You can wear wool more than once without it getting smelly and gross. And that's great, because if you can wear something more than once and you don't have to wash it as often, and you know, it just all really goes together. So I am kind of looking at, first I'm just getting rid of clothes that I'm not wearing anyway, so it doesn't really affect me having enough clothes to wear. A blessing, of course. And then I'm going to be thinking about replacing, when I do replace things, with things that are maybe a little more high-end, a little more pricey, and more workable for my current lifestyle. All right, so that was all in the bedroom. And on the third day, it was actually yesterday, on Monday, I had Kent help me out in the kitchen. So bear with me here. I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can. We started out with this big cabinet that we have over our sink. It has all of our cups in it. Well, if you really think about it, we're two people. We don't need all of these cups. So we started out by pulling out all of the cups that we really weren't using and again, put them in a pile to donate. So after we did that, I wanted to do a little bit of rearranging in the kitchen. So these two cabinets have these like big plastic containers in them with all of our utensils. I really don't like those utensils to be out on the counter. I just find them hard to actually get to. I don't like how it looks. So the way that we did this is because we only have one drawer in our kitchen, is I got these bins with drawers, but they were hard to get to. So when we cleaned out all of the cups, we actually made space in that top shelf to put all of these containers. So here you go. Here's the after of the cups that we were able to keep, and then all of the containers that have just like, you know, utensils like potato masher and spoon and all of that at a much easier level for us to actually grab, because those other 4 cabinets were up high. So it's already taking some time to get used to, but I can tell that it is already so much better. So after we did the cups, I moved over to my like coffee station. So here's the before of my coffee. I basically just cleaned up a few things. I found some like random coffee that I'm gonna go ahead and use tomorrow so that it's used up because it's just a random package, and a few other things that didn't need to be in there. And here is that cabinet after. I also got to like clean off some of the coffee grounds that had spilled and all of that. Just above that is all of our containers. So here's what it looked like before. Kind of cleaned that out, and then here's what it looks like after. Again, I was really focused on not so much getting rid of things, but actually like rearranging and bringing stuff down, things that we use all the time, to a level that's usable. This was really nice to do. And then finally, all the shelves that we cleared out with those big containers and moved to the other like kind of garage door space, we ended up moving some of our cups that we don't use as often, and we brought our knives. This is so bad. Our knives were on a shelf like way up high, which is extremely dangerous. So we brought those down and ended up putting them here. So here's what that looks like. I think maybe I have 2 pictures for this. And we ended up with an empty shelf, like not even on purpose. We just have an empty shelf. So the kitchen is probably not going to continue to be on my declutter list, but I do think that we will end up continuing to like move things around and just get all the things we use a lot like down low, and move the things we don't use as much up high. When you live in a small apartment like this, it's not unusual to hop up on a ladder several times a day, but it would be nice if we didn't have to do that quite as often. So next week I'll have a new personal goal. I'll also wrap up the last of the decluttering that I'm going to be doing this week, but I'll share with you what I'm going to be focusing on for February. And I haven't decided yet, but it's going to go in a different direction than just like bettering the house. I also want to look at things that are bettering myself, or maybe even just like taking the time to pamper myself, things like that. So I just love this way of doing it because it's a very short time. It's not a New Year's resolution, but it's like a short, doable thing. My business goal for the month of January has been to do the bookkeeping for my business for 30 minutes 4 times a week. The reason I picked this is because I was really far behind on a new system that I'm using, which is QuickBooks, and I just hadn't taken the time to learn it. And since since October, I have not really messed with it at all. And so I really needed this extra boost to like get through things. So I'm really pleased to say that I was able to complete 4 out of 4 days over the last week. I also had a meeting with my tax accountant, and he was able to answer some questions for me and give me some tips. And I was able to learn that I can like check a bunch of transactions and like sort them all at once, which has just made the process so much easier, which is probably why it was easy for me to complete 4 out of 4 days. I actually think I did longer than 30 minutes on one day because I was just feeling so motivated to work on it. And I am finally under 1,000 uncategorized transactions. So that just means that like every like expense or payment that comes through, I have to go through and categorize. And I had that many. To be under 1,000, it's really good. So I'm making a little bit of progress each and every day, and that is feeling super great. This is probably an area of my business that I don't personally need to be working on. I feel like I needed to like learn how to do it, but when I'm done with this month, I think I've got it to a point where I can now pass it off to somebody else to work on for me and feel really good and confident about that. So for me, that's like a big just win overall, and so like a new business hat that I have been putting on is delegating things. So that feels really good. Lastly is my knitting and crochet goal for the month, which is to work for 30 minutes a day for 30 days on my granny stripe blanket. I still haven't changed the wording on that. Really, it's make one stripe for 26 days because that's how many stripes I needed to do on my granny stripe. But I did have a really solid week where I didn't have any like overlap of stripes going into the next day. I completed each stripe before the end of the day, and here's my tracker that I have been using. This is a tracker I created for the Love and Stitches membership since we're doing 30 for 30, but it has been really helpful. And I think it's a fun way to like make a challenge for yourself. I just created this in Canva. So, you know, if you want to create a tracker for yourself, you could always make something like this and then check it off each day in your photos or share it in your Instagram stories or something. So that's been really solid. And the blanket is almost done. I have 6 days remaining. And then that January goal is complete. And what's the date today? Am I going into February for this? No, because today's the 24th and I still have to do today. So the 24th, Tuesday, that's the first of the last 6 days. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I should be finished on Sunday. Oh my gosh. That's pretty wild. And Sunday is, I believe, the 29th. So I have a couple days before I will begin my January goal, which if you want to see what that is now, you can find it in my last video, little hint there. But if you want to wait until next week, I will definitely be sharing it here in the podcast. I think that's everything for today. Thank you as always for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.